Tower, love, ambition, betrayal. I mean, the story of Cleopatra really has it all, doesn't it? For over 2,000 years, her name has echoed through history. But who was the real woman behind that massive legend? Well, today, we're going to find out.
So, when you hear the name Cleopatra, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably a stunningly beautiful seductress, right? Someone who captivated the most powerful men in Rome? And yeah, that's the popular image. But it really begs the question, was her power all about her looks, or was there something much, much more going on?
You see, while history loves to focus on her relationships, the real story is, well, it's about a brilliant political strategist. We're going to peel back the layers of that myth and get to the mind of a queen who constantly outmaneuvered her rivals to protect her kingdom.
So, how did she become this incredible figure? Well, it all starts with her upbringing, which, let me tell you, was anything but ordinary. It prepared her for a life of power and, frankly, constant peril.
Okay, so first you have to understand her background. Her family, the Ptolemies, were Greek, and they had been ruling over Egypt for centuries. But Cleopatra, she did something unheard of. She was the first ruler in her family to actually learn the Egyptian language. Think about that. After 300 years, it was an absolutely brilliant political move that connected her to her people. And on top of that, she presented herself as the living version of the goddess Isis, forging this powerful divine link that none of her ancestors ever had.
And just how smart was she? Well, let's just look at this number, 7. That's the minimum number of languages historians think she could speak fluently. In a world where most leaders needed translators for everything, she could negotiate, persuade, and command in a person's own tongue. I mean, can you imagine the political advantage that gave her? It's huge.
Her formal education was just off the charts. Seriously, for any ruler, let alone a woman in that era. She studied politics, mathematics, science, literature. This wasn't the training for some ceremonial queen. Nope. This was the training of a CEO, a general, and a head of state all rolled into one. And boy, would she need every bit of that training. Because her reign kicked off with the ultimate challenge, a fight for her throne against her own family. So at just 18, she's forced into what's called a co-regency. Basically, she had to share power with her own 10-year-old brother. But here's the problem. His advisors were terrified of her. They knew how smart she was, and they didn't want a powerful queen. They wanted a little puppet king they could control. So they plotted against her and forced her into exile. So, what does an exiled queen do to get her throne back? She pulls off one of the boldest moves in all of history. She knows the most powerful man in the world, Julius Caesar, is in town. So to get past her brother's guards, she has a servant roll her up in a carpet and smuggle her in, delivering her as a gift right at Caesar's feet. Can you imagine his surprise when this gift unrolls and outsteps the exiled queen of Egypt? What a power move. It was audacious, brilliant, and pure genius.
And you know what? That incredible gamble, it paid off. Big time. By winning over Caesar, she didn't just get her throne back. She forged an alliance with the most powerful man on the planet.
Now don't just think of this as some whirlwind romance. Oh no, this was a masterclass in international politics. It was a partnership. Let's break down what each of them brought to the table. Cleopatra offered Rome what it desperately needed, grain to feed its massive population, and of course the immense wealth of Egypt. In return, Caesar gave her Rome's unstoppable military might, which secured her throne and protected her kingdom. It was a win-win. And this political alliance was then sealed with a very personal one. In 47 BCE, she gave birth to their son, Caesarion, or Little Caesar. But for Cleopatra, this baby, he was everything. He was the living symbol of her ultimate dream, a future where the two great empires of Egypt and Rome could be united under their family's dynasty. And then, just like that, the dream was shattered. In 44 BCE, Julius Caesar was assassinated. For Cleopatra, this was an absolute catastrophe. In a single moment, she lost her most powerful protector and the father of her child. She was no longer an ally in Rome. She was a target. She had no choice but to grab her son and flee back to Egypt.
So she's back in Egypt, but she's still in a dangerous position. She knows she needs a new Roman ally to survive. And that brings us to the next giant figure in her life, the Roman general, Mark Antony.
And if you thought the carpet incident was bold, just wait till you hear how she met Antony. He summons her to Tarsus to answer some questions. But she doesn't just show up. No way. She puts on a spectacle. She arrives on this incredible golden barge, dressed as Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Now, this wasn't just about seduction. This was political theater at its absolute finest. She was sending a message. I am not your subordinate. I am your equal. I am a goddess.
And it totally worked. They formed a deep bond, both political and personal, and they had 3 children together. They basically ruled the entire eastern half of the Roman world as a power couple. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? This power couple created a seriously powerful enemy. Back in Rome, Caesar's adopted son Octavian saw Antony and Cleopatra as a massive threat to his own ambition to rule everything.
And that rivalry, that clash with Octavian, would set the stage for the final tragic act of her story, where Cleopatra would make her defiant last stand against the full might of the Roman Empire.
The end. It came so fast. In 31 BCE, their forces were crushed by Octavian's fleet at the Battle of Actium. Less than a year later, Octavian's army is at the gates of Alexandria. Antony hears a false rumor that Cleopatra is dead, and he takes his own life. So there she is, alone, defeated, and facing an absolutely horrifying choice: be captured and dragged through the streets of Rome in chains as a war trophy, or die a queen.
She chose her own fate. She refused to be a pawn in Octavian's victory parade. Instead, she dressed in her full royal robes, and, as the legend goes, she took her own life with the bite of a poisonous asp. She controlled her own story right to the very end, dying on her own terms in her own kingdom.
In the end, Octavian won the war. Egypt became just another Roman province. But in the long game, in the battle for history, Cleopatra may have been the true victor. Her kingdom fell, yes, but her story, the story of a brilliant, defiant queen who dared to stand up to an unstoppable empire, has fascinated the world for over 2,000 years.
So this brings us back to the big question, doesn't it? What should we take away from all this? Was Cleopatra's life just a tragic romance, a story defined by the famous men she loved? Or was it the last heroic stand of an incredible queen fighting to save her culture and her kingdom from being swallowed by Rome? The answer, I think, is that she was both. And that's exactly why we're still talking about her today.